Last year, when Marvel Rivals released, I was extremely reluctant about it. I'd been in an on-again, off-again toxic situationship since high school with Overwatch and couldn't fathom the concept of hooking up with another competitive hero shooter with similar gameplay and traits to Overwatch itself. I'd dipped a toe into Valorant, CS, Apex, but I always ran home to Overwatch in the end, despite how depressed and sad it made me feel because there was no other game that could make me feel like she did. But then I decided, fuck it. Booted Rivals up for the first time and found a new love. All this time later, it's so strange to think that a game that hasn't even accomplished a year in its cycle has already done enough to garner so much negative attention and dead and stale accusations that you'd think they did everything possible to piss off their player base. So the question is, did they? And I don't think there is one clear answer as to what Rivals did or didn't do to earn its increasingly negative reputation. I think for most, it is an accumulation of choices. Some controversies you might know are refusal to add role queue, only 4 healers being meta, only 2 tanks being meta, triple healer meta, double DPS seasonal release, competitive point changes, chrono cards, bots in your games, EOMM accusations, and terrible matchmaking. And last but not least, the culprit I think is a real killer, or at least the final nail in the coffin that sealed Rivals' fate. Group restrictions starting as early as gold and ranked games. I'd like to talk a bit in this video on why I think this particular change has dramatically decreased the amount of players logging into the game and why it was such a terrible move on their part. And then I'd also like to talk a bit more about if Rivals is truly dead or dying. Before we get into the rest of the video, my name is VexHax. I'm a gaming related YouTuber, and if you want to check out more content like this one, you should check out the rest of my videos and subscribe if you like what you see. Thank you so much for clicking and watching my video. I hope you enjoy. Without further ado, let's get into it. Again, I think it's important to reiterate that I do not believe inherently that one single decision destroyed Rivals. I just think, above them all, this one caused the most damage. If you want a reasoning for it, I hate to say it, yet again, but check out Overwatch. What has been said since Overwatch and its time running out about matchmaking? Most players that play in quick play or ranked, especially metal ranks, are casual players who like to group up with their friends. Actually, it is the solo players that you find less of these days. Most people just don't like playing alone. When you play with friends, you've got comms, coordination, you have someone to laugh with, to rage with, and you're not all on your own. Teamwork makes the dream work, and it's a hell of a lot easier to be on a team with recognizable faces. Overwatch has ranked limitations, but they start in Grandmaster, which, unlike Rivals, was their tiniest population of players. Starting in GM, you could only duo queue because they didn't want to allow full stacks of highly coordinated GM players to dominate lobbies. Unfortunate, but an understandable change. This only affects a small percentage of the population, and the metal ranks are left unbothered by it because they're probably never going to be in GM anyway, and the likelihood of your full stack of a team all climbing together at the same time and hitting GM was extremely low. So end of the day, it's kind of a nothing burger change, and if high-ranking players wanted to full stack, there were certainly enough of them to run pugs. In Rivals, however, I think there's a big reason that this change has occurred. I think the Marvel Rivals team, which have been quick to attempt to address player feedback and criticism, especially in their first year of running, have overcorrected on some criticism expressed throughout the seasons. Two of the biggest points I think led to this are, matchmaking sucks, and it might possibly be EOMM, climbing is too easy, players are boosted. I think Rivals has really been trying to find its sweet spot with its competitive ranks and point system, and is trying to find a way for everyone to be happy with their climb, rank, and points that they get from each game, as well as matchmaking. But I think that their desire to make everyone happy has blinded them to the fact that I don't really think there is a single game out there where the player base is satisfied with the state of rank or matchmaking. And once more, I only want to focus on Overwatch when it comes to comparisons, since Rivals is its only direct competitor. People have never ever been happy with ranked in Overwatch. There has never been a time where people believed ranked was perfect, balanced, matchmaking was amazing, and your rank is what you deserve. It took years of coping, raging, video essays, and more before people started quieting down on criticizing Overwatch's ranked experience. But even today, I am sure you will find more than enough people complaining about throwers, trolls, smurfs, the system being unfair, games being a toss-up, forced losses, and not really comprehending the system and accusing the devs of being insidious. In other words, this is really nothing new. It's just happening in a new game, and I feel as though people have a new game to be able to take these grievances to, and though it's disproven or just nonsensical, Rivals has less capability to defend itself because it's a new game, prone to mistakes, and feedback is required to fix it. But is the matchmaking broken? Truly? Lots of people have been slowly letting go of the EOMM notions in favor of the, well, the matchmaking is still terrible argument instead. Which is funny, because the same people that complained about EOMM were usually the ones who were actually terrible performers in their games, and they're also the same people complaining about bad matchmaking. You can cherry pick a game where somebody had bad aim, or support had bad positioning, or somebody threw, or a tank was inting, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this is just kind of what happens when you play with randoms. You never know what you're going to get, and there are a million factors outside of your control that dictate how that person is going to play. Maybe your worst teammate was your best teammate in yesterday's game, and you wouldn't even realize it. Maybe you played with someone you feel very strongly is the worst player of all time, but until that game, they were on a hot winning streak with MVP every game, and they just got hard countered the entire match, leading to a horrible performance. The only reason I want to address all this is because I'm experiencing a wild feeling of deja vu, and it feels like no one else is realizing it alongside me. Haven't we been through all of this before already with Overwatch? It feels like we're looping, just complaining about the same things day in, day out. And now that people are realizing that Rivals is more or less the same, dipping out in favor for Overwatch, since again, it wasn't actually providing anything new anymore. And I think the overcorrection based on all this criticism is the reason why Rivals is suffering so much. I actually think Rivals was in a perfect position to be doing the opposite of Overwatch. Even if that meant climbing was easier, or rank didn't feel as important, it was making people feel more capable and satisfied in the big picture. I mean, just think about it for 2 seconds. What player was incredibly upset about easy climbing, or boosted players, or the support role being easy? Who was most upset? Was it Jimmy, the Plat 1 who plays 5 or 8 games with his buddies every night? Or Joe, the Celestial 1 with 6 alt accounts in Bronze, Gold, and Diamond to dunk on lower ranks, feeling like his matches in Supreme rank are being overthrown by boosted supports when he himself is causing the balance shift on his alts? I think it was just so weak in retrospect to think about all the people coasting along in Celestial and Eternity, complaining about people being boosted or climbing being too easy, when at the end of the day, they were still in the least populated ranks, with most people dipping way below and unable to be good enough to crack out themselves. It seems like they just never considered the fact that maybe the enemies were just better, or their teammates could have been having an off day. All they did was spread the usual negativity and blowback on randoms for costing them their games, because they are perfect, amazing players that never make mistakes and never do anything wrong, and although they have hit the highest rank imaginable, still have to beat down on everyone else for not playing as good as them. And I think this contributed poorly, because when the peak 1 content creators start bitching like sheep, so does everybody else. They dictate bans. They dictate community perspective on decisions and changes. They repeat enough things and everyone repeats them too. Before you know it, Diamond players are crying about boosted supports, easy climbing, the game being too easy, competitive having no integrity, and that they need to fix it. So Rivals listened, and fix it they did, with a multitude of changes that have only been met with outrage. In other words, I really think the Rivals community as a whole has done this to themselves with the amount of complaining that they do. So the devs are very, very focused on matchmaking and equal balancing in rank, and they had a brilliant idea. Hey, our matchmaking system has a harder time finding balanced games when people play in groups. Let's just limit it. And goodbye Jimmy, the Plat 1 who hops on with his buddies at night. And goodbye Jimmy's friends, who don't see the point in playing anymore because they can't play together. And when the numbers go down, the other people feeling reluctant about the game feel justified with their feelings and also begin to dip out. And I think ultimately, the cause just comes down to overpressuring the devs into having competitive integrity, whatever the fuck that means. Does Overwatch have it? I am sure if you ask enough people, they will just say no. Again, I have never ever met a game community satisfied with the state of rank or matchmaking. I think Rivals just got the harsh end for being new and for, having a few issues here and there. But I think it's more due to balance of heroes in the game than EOMM or boosted players. But hey, I could totally be wrong, right? After all, surely the peak 1 players never get anything wrong and always have the right opinion. I'm sure I'll learn my lesson the next time they smurf in my medal rank game and teach me a lesson for being a goober that thought he could climb. Even so, I don't really know if this is a dead game. It just isn't more popular than Overwatch. Last I checked, there are still 50 to 60, maybe even 90k people playing the game, and it's evened out with Overwatch. It doesn't really seem like a dead game to me, but it definitely has suffered and may continue to if, I think, people aren't allowed to play ranked with their friends. Out of all the decisions that they've made, I think this one will go down as the worst one yet. But in all seriousness, what do you think? This is just my opinion. I think we had a good thing going and we kind of ruined it with overreaction on matchmaking and fair games. I think Overwatch is in the same boat, but it's been out for so long, people have just learned to let it go. And if they returned, would come to quickly find out that they are as likely to have bad teammates and get their shit smothered hard in a game as they are in Rivals. Do you think there was a greater contributor to Rivals falling off? What do you think it would take for them to recover? Or is it all just a big nothing burger? Honestly, sometimes I kind of have a hard time even sticking to my own personal belief. I see a lot of what I'd like to call trusted content creators, people who I don't think make slop but actually have good points to make, and they say that they feel like something is off about the game. There is no EOMM, but something's off. And they too feel like something is not right there with the matchmaking, or they don't know where some of these players who quote unquote throw their games are coming from. But again, I just feel like this is just so common. This is so common. I used to watch these same streamers play Overwatch in top 500 or Grandmaster 1, whatever. And they would also get in those games in the top of the top, they would get the same thing. They'd get people falling off the map. They'd get people hard tilting and throwing. They'd get someone trolling. They'd get somebody who just, you wonder how they ever got there. This is nothing new to me. It feels exactly the same. It's just a different game, so now we're all freaking out about it. At least, again, that's just how I feel. Maybe there is something else going on, but I just don't see it. But what about you? If you've got your own speculation or theory, or you disagree with me, why don't you let me know down in the comments below. Thank you again for checking out my video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more like it, and drop a like if you enjoyed the video, or a dislike if you didn't. Socials below for my community. Have a good night.